Ki chapayim uvar levav. David HaMelech asks, Mi yale b'har Hashem. What does this mean? Mi yale b'har Hashem. Who's the kind of person that's able to ascend, that's able to enter into this place? B'har Hashem, the mountain of God. Mi yakum b'mekoyim kadshay. Who's the person who stands in that holy place? And the pasuk carries on, Ki chapayim uvar levav. It's a person with clean hands, uvar levav, and a pure heart. And on a simple level, the following words mean, Asher loy nasal ashav nafshi v'loy nishba l'mirma, a person that hasn't sworn falsely in the name of God. So I want to learn with you now a little bit, with Hashem's help. What a privilege. And I thank each and every one of you for being here, for joining into this very ambiguous event that nobody knows what it is. And that's okay, also, sometimes. And that's a very, very important thing, that you were able to overcome whatever hurdle there is in not knowing and to show up, because there's something you feel that you want. There's something you feel that you're after. This is an amazing group of people. This is a wondrous room. How much yearning there is, how much desire to be better, to be higher, to be more connected. It's already a reason to rejoice. Reb Tzadok HaKohen says, Yismach Leiv. Who's the person with a joyous heart? Not the one who has found God, but Mevakshe Hashem, the one who's searching for God. Already Yismach Leiv. There's already reason to be dancing your whole life, because you're a person that's seeking. And I'm excited to get to know many of you individually. You are people who are seeking. And I'm a person that's seeking. And those lonely seekers have to find each other. And they have to link arms, and they have to hold each other up. And that's the whole thing of what Eilecha is, and what this is an exercise. And we're just here to give each other chizuk, because we all need it. It's not a bechina v'aselecha rav. This is not that kind of situation. It's a knelecha chaver. You just get yourself a good friend. And I hope that we can be good friends to each other, to encourage each other. Before we begin to talk a little bit about Shavuos through the lens of Pnimius HaTorah, which might be a little bit new to some of you, and I hope that it's new to me every day and every minute, there are a few acknowledgments and thank yous in order. So first and foremost, we want to thank Rabbi Naftali Schiff of Jewish Futures, all of these wonderful organizations. That's his project. This is his building, our building. So he makes all of this possible and the magic happen. So we're tremendously grateful to him for all of this. And a very, very special thank you to my Ishes Chayil Tashira for all the logistical planning that went into planning this and the Manchester event. A tremendous amount of work, Erev Shavuos on top of everything else. We appreciate it beyond words. Ein milim. I want to also thank our musicians. You can't see them anymore, but they were here, and they still are here. I want to thank them for joining and enhancing. And we want to thank Hashem for putting us in this glorious generation, which so often seems to be such a challenged generation, and a generation fraught with so many difficulties and challenges, collectively and as individuals. But the truth is that if we're here, it's because HaKadosh Baruch Hu trusted our souls in such a deep way that maybe he didn't trust the soul of the Baal Shem Tov to put him in this seat, in our seats, in this place. We have elevated neshamas. And so much of the lowliness that we may experience as individuals, or that we might find others exhibiting, is actually an expression of this holiness. It's just in disguise. People are searching until they don't know where to look, until they look in all the wrong places. But it's a holy energy. It's a holy bikush. There's never been a generation like ours. We're coming to life. It's an amazing time to be alive. We're on the threshold of Geula. On the threshold of Geula. Why is Shavuos called Shavuos? Just on a simple level, what does the word mean? Shavuos means weeks. Right? That's what it means. A Shavuah is a week. And Shavuos are weeks. And the day of Shavuos, the Yom Tov of Shavuos, is an encapsulation of the weeks that were before it, that we counted day and week. The whole entire sphere culminates in this day of Shavuos. And that's on a very simple level, and it's true. And that's why Shavuos is called Shavuos weeks. But the word Shavua has another meaning. In addition to week, it means an oath or a vow. A person takes a Shavua. They make a vow. They swear. And if you think about what that is to make a vow, the concept of a vow, what sits at the heart of that experience? It's a strange thing. You can have a person who has the ability and potential to do any one of a million things and could choose to do one thing or another at any given moment, and they make a vow. What are they doing in that moment? They're making a vow to do something. They are committing. They're committing. They're not bound. Okay, there are halachic details regarding vows, and a person obligates him or herself in making a vow. That's true. But nothing really changed. It's not anything more than having the thought in one's mind that they're going to do something, but all of a sudden they make a vow about it. It becomes a whole different thing. They become committed to that thing. They cannot choose otherwise. They commit. Now, I want to talk to you about two different kinds of vows. I'll give two examples. And we're going to talk a little bit about the distinctions between these two, and there are many, but we're going to talk about the fundamental distinction, what characterizes the difference between one of these vows and the other of these vows. Okay, vow number one. It's Sunday. A person's suit got dirty over Shabbos. They take the suit to the cleaners on Monday, and they make a vow that they will pick up the cleaners on Wednesday. For whatever reason, they make a vow. We picked up our cleaners, right? Okay, good. Just remembering, right? You make a vow to pick up the cleaners on Wednesday. That's vow number one. Vow number two, commitment number two. And I bless all of us with this experience in the room. Whoever's looking for their zivug, their other half of their soul should find their other half, Bakar of Mamish. To stand under the chuppah and to make a commitment, to make a vow, is qualitatively different than making a commitment to pick up cleaners later on in the week. Even though both of them are commitments, it's two completely different kinds of things. And there are many different reasons why these two things are different. They're halachically different. They're structured differently in terms of how the vow is made, the commitment is made. But I'd like to put it to you in these terms. The vow of picking up the cleaners is what I'd like to call an I will vow. Which means I, as a human being, as a person, am making a commitment to do something. I, as me, will, in this case, pick up the cleaners. That's one kind of vow. I will do something. This other kind of vow, this holy bond of marriage, may be defined by the words, not I will, but I am. I am now a husband, right? I am now a wife. What's the difference between I will and I am? The distinction is that an I will vow means that I have a life, and there is a small part of my life that I am committing to engaging with, taking care of, focusing on, doing. But the I am vow is, we can use this term in this context, existential in nature. Meaning it relates not to a part of my life, but it relates to the all of me in such a way that I am now different than I was 5 minutes ago. I am different. I don't commit to doing something differently or to doing something. My whole reality changes. And marriage we're just using as one example. There are many examples like this, and we're going to talk about a fundamental example that all of us experience, irrespective of our circumstance. This is just ledugma, a mashal. I am. That no matter what I am doing and how many cleaners I might pick up, I do so as a married person, right? I do so with this experience enveloping me all the time and at every moment of my existence, of my experience. There is an even more fundamental vow than marriage or really any other I am vow, no matter what you'd like to think in your own life, something that relates to you as a person, not some small part of you. There is an even more fundamental vow than that, and that's a vow that each and every one of us made. And the vow that each and every one of us make, the Gemara Nida tells us that before you and me were born into this world. Is that an amazing thing to think about? All of us in this room were born one time. We were born. We were fresh and holy and pure. And we still are. And there's a place inside of us that's just that way all the time. That's the place of our fragility. There's nothing more fragile than an infant. Just out of the womb, taking its first breath. There's nothing more delicate. There's nothing more needy. And there's a part within all of us, irrespective of how we try to mask it by pretending that we have it all together, that always feels that way. And that's the most beautiful part of you. We spend so much time often like trying to hide that part or push it away or pretend it's not there. And it's lehepech, it's adarabah. That's the best part of you. To me, the people that exhibit that part of them more, I want to hang out with them more. Call me strange. I love homeless people. I just have a thing. I just love homeless people. I love them. I'm mamish, okay, some of them are drug addicts and whatever, and I love them too, but you can't really talk to them. But sometimes, and if you look out for it, you'll see it. Just now in Manchester, so I was there on Tuesday, when I was leaving the train station, there was just this incredibly holy, homeless man sitting on the floor with his back against a pillar. And I went over to him, and I told him, I said, "You heard of King David?" He said, "Yeah." His eyes lit up, shining eyes. I said, "You know, King David wrote a book, it's called Psalms. And in Psalms, in Tehillim, King David writes that, I didn't tell him the Hebrew, Leiv Nishbar V'nitka, a broken-hearted person, Elikim Lo Yisivzeh. God is with the broken-hearted person. And I told him, I said, "You're sitting here facing the opening and you look at all these successful people walking in and out, places to go, carrying things." I said, "It's a joke. You have more than they could ever dream of having." And I meant it. I mamish meant it. So you and I have that place inside of us, a fragile place, a place that we should feel comfortable exhibiting. It's easier if you're an American, but still. So it's an extra effort. It doesn't mean that we should just resign ourselves to our Britishness. Push, right? So we can reveal that part of us. We can change a culture. Do you know that this chaver in this room can change this culture? We can change this city around. I mamish believe it. Just need a smattering of these kinds of yidden in every shul. We can absolutely change this place. And we can demonstrate the way in which it's so beautiful to be open. It's so incredibly beautiful to be vulnerable. So this is all tangent, but this is just getting back to the baby, right? So the baby is born. And when that holy spark, when that fragile part of us, the human part of us, the real part of us, everything else is just a facade, but the real part of us emerges, The Gemara tells us, Mashbin oisai, each and every one of those souls takes a shavua, makes a vow. And the vow is tihi tzadik, va'al tihi rasha. The vow is make a commitment to be righteous. I don't really like this terminology, righteous or evil, wicked. I don't know what either of these things mean. I don't know. Usually, what we call wicked is hurt or brokenhearted, and what we call righteous is self-righteous. I don't like using either of these terminologies. I don't know. Let's use different definitions. Okay, tihi tzadik, do your best to be a channel to reveal godliness in the world. Va'al tihi rasha, and do your best to try not to block the revelation of God's presence in the world. This vow that we make is so absolutely fundamental, because if we don't make that vow, we aren't born. Which means not only that it relates to the, like I said before, the I am vow. It's not even who I am, which is deep enough. It's why I am. It's literally the fundamental premise for the reason that you and me are sitting in this room now, is because we uttered those words, tihi tzadik. I commit to being a beacon of light in this world, with my circumstances, whatever those are, to find HaKadosh Baruch Hu, to find Him. It's all of who we are. It's the why we are. It's the deepest, deepest part of who we are. So this is all of us individually, but all of us collectively entered into this commitment. All of us as a nation experienced what this means, to take on our shoulders a mission, a fundamental premise that sits at the core of our identity of who we are. Because in many places in the Gemara you find this terminology, mushba va'oimed mehar Sinai. For example, if a person takes a vow that they're going to do a particular mitzvah, the Gemara says it's irrelevant. The vow it's not chal. It's nothing. Because mushba va'oimed mehar Sinai. What do you mean? He's taking a vow to shake lulav. He already vowed to shake lulav. You know where? At Har Sinai. Literally, the Gemara tells us that. So it's not just some idea like we were all by Har Sinai. Literally, the Gemara says, you make a vow to light Shabbos candles, it's not a vow, because you already vowed to do that. Mushba va'oimed mehar Sinai. All of us collectively entered into this covenant. We made this commitment that is an I am vow. It's fundamental to our experience, to our identity. And so all of us, as we come into Shavuos now, need to make a decision. And the decision that we need to make is, what kind of commitment is this commitment of mine to Torah Judaism, to mitzvah observance, to being a card-carrying member of this thing we call orthodoxy? What is this vow to me? And I have to ask myself this question. All of us individually have to take a couple of minutes, which we're doing now, and to ask ourselves this question. And there are two options. Is it an I will vow? Meaning I have my identity, whatever that identity is, and my narratives of the story that led me to this point, and my dreams for the future, and my particular capacities and abilities and roles and circumstances, and that's me with my name and my family background and so on. And then also there's a part of my life that's called Yiddishkeit, that's called Torah, and that's called whatever, Yom Tovim, mitzvahs, different things that we do throughout the day, throughout the week, throughout the month, throughout the year, throughout the years, decades. Is it an I, and then hopefully we make a commitment, I will do these things? Or are we willing to come into Shavuos with such a perspective, and we'll get into this a little bit now, that I say, Master of heaven and earth, the vow that I'm making now, mushba va'oimed mehar Sinai, is not an I will vow. It's an I am vow. It's the absolute defining factor of my personality, before anything else, beyond anything else, within everything else. It's not a facet of my identity. It is the whole sum of my identity, of who I am. I am a Jew. That comes first. And again, Jew not ethnically or even religiously or spiritually, a Jew existentially. A spark of divinity, a spark of godliness. This is a decision that we make. V'noimer lefanav shiur chadasha. There's never been a sweeter moment for a new start than now. To make this commitment, to say, Lule saras chashuai. I don't just want to go through the motions. I want to be in love, absolutely in love with Yiddishkeit. So all of this is beautiful, and this is another reason why Shavuos is called Shavuos, because it doesn't just mean weeks, but it means a vow. It's the vow that we made at Matan Torah. But the question is, theoretically, it could be called Shavuah, just a vow, right? Because it's the vow that all of us took. Ki ish echad b'lev echad, singular. Just the vow. What are these vows? Shavuos, two. And so the Svarim HaKadoshim, listen to this very carefully. This is a whole different picture of Shavuos. It's a whole different experience. The Svarim HaKadoshim tell us that we are not the only ones that make a commitment on Shavuos. We said before, Vayered Hashem al Har Sinai, the Spirit of the Divine descends on this mountain. And it didn't just happen thousands of years ago that we're commemorating tomorrow night. It's a re-experiencing, literally, Zman Matan Torah Seinu. It's a re-experiencing of this. Hashem makes a commitment to us too. HaKadosh Baruch Hu mirrors the existential fundament, the foundation of our commitment at Matan Torah with committing all of himself to us in this symbiotic, two-faceted relationship. Where HaKadosh Baruch Hu says, your existence depends on your striving and yearning for me. Kiviyachal, as it were, Hashem is Ein Sof, He's the infinite. He says, my existence hinges on you. Hinges on you. It's my whole focus. Ein Melech B'loi Am. Whatever this means. Hashem is perfect, but in some sense, He absolutely needs us, maybe even more in a certain way than we need Him. Because we need Him because He brought us into the world, and so now we're needy people and we're human beings and we need Him. But the only reason that we're in the world in the first place is because He needed us. Changes the dynamic. The sense of responsibility, the sense of rachmanus. The Rabbi Nachman and the Baal HaTanya were sitting together at one time. They were very close friends, these two. And the Baal HaTanya said something. Rabbi Nachman smiled and he agreed. And he said, good gesagt, you said good. What did the Baal HaTanya say? He said, there's a pasuk in Tehillim that says, Rachamecha Rabim Hashem. Which on a certain level means, Hashem, your mercy is so great. It's on the surface. So the Baal HaTanya listened to the way that he touched it. He said, oh, you ever heard the term Rachmanus? Oh, it's Rachmanus, right? What does it mean? It's like Nebuch, you know. You have pity on the person. That's Rachmanus. Said the Baal HaTanya, oh, Rachamecha Rabim Hashem. He says, Hashem, we have such Rachmanus on you. He says, oh, how much you need us. This is how the Baal HaTanya touched it. It's a whole different way of looking at Hashem. Hashem is called Doidi Doifik. If He didn't need us, He's not sitting there knocking on the door, Meitzitz Menacharakim, looking through the cracks and the windows to beg us to let Him in. He has a stake in our lives. Our lives are of ultimate import, beyond what we can ever imagine. All of us as we are now. B'shvili nivra olam. Each of us can say the whole world was created just for me. And the tzaddikim teach that all of us need to say, Hayoim imikali tishmo, all I ever have is today. So no matter what kind of day you happen to be having, and no matter what phase you happen to be experiencing in your life, it was worth God bringing all the cosmos into existence for you now. End of story. God is knocking. And he says, let me in, let me in. There is no ideal vision of a perfect set of circumstances for which to let God in. Whatever circumstances you have, that's where he wants you to let him in. There. That's why you have those circumstances. That's why we go through what we go through. Because that's where God needs to be introduced. So listen to these words. I'm just going to read a few short lines and we'll come to the end. From the Eilecha from the Derech HaMelech. And the tzaddik says there are two things in the Torah. This is very, very fundamental. Let's mamish try to open our heart to this. He says the Torah consists of two elements, Sefer and the mitzvahs. Sefer is the scroll itself, right? We may also refer to this as the parchment, just the scroll, the collectivity, the whole of this thing called the Torah, as a whole, in its entirety. The Zohar Kadosh has such a beautiful bitui, such a beautiful expression of what the Torah is. He says, Eish shchayra al gabe eish levana. It's black fire on top of white fire. Which means, of course, the letters on top of the parchment. But how many of us think about the parchment? We're so busy reading the letters. We're so busy looking just at the, what the content is, what it says. But the Zohar Kadosh says that's only half the picture. That's the black fire. Very beautiful. But what about the white fire? What about the parchment? What about the whole thing itself? Sefer and mitzvahs. Listen to what he says here. Ha-mitzvahs megalim rak ivarim. He says the mitzvahs in the Torah reveal the limbs of the Torah, facets of the Torah. Different elements of what Hashem wants us to do in order to connect with him, in order to build a relationship with him, in order to become more and more conscious of him. But the Sefer itself, the book, the work in its entirety, the scroll, the parchment, the white fire, megala es ha'etzem v'hashir koyim shalosh ha'mitzvahs eivar of heim. It reveals the actual persona of the Torah, the personality of the Torah, the all of the Torah. That the mitzvahs are limbs of this thing, just like all of us have arms and legs, but that's not us, right? They allow the us to manifest. And so the mitzvahs are only part of the Torah. The Torah in and of itself, that's the white parchment. That's the scroll. That's the concept of Sefer. That's the whole thing. That's the whole thing. That's the holistic commitment of ourselves, not just to do a few actions that are recorded in black ink on white parchment, but to marry ourselves, as it were, existentially. I am intertwined with this experience of Judaism. So he says an amazing thing. B'nei Esav Yishmael sha'alu. Esav and Yishmael famously ask when HaKadosh Baruch Hu brings the Torah to them and he offers it to them. What do they say? Maksiv Bey, which means, what does it say in the Torah? Now, all of us learn this on a simple level. They wanted to know what's in it. And Am Yisrael were even better because we just said Nasav and Ishma. That's what we learn on a simple level. But the P.S. Rebbe says the deepest thing in the world. It's a totally different approach. He says, you know what their problem was? Listen to this carefully. Not that they wanted to know what was in it so that they can make some kind of conditional decision whether or not they wanted to receive the Torah. No. The problem with Esav and Yishmael asking what's in the Torah was that it demonstrated that the only understanding of a relationship with Torah that they could grasp was one in which they may have been okay living a checklist Judaism life. Tell me what it says in the Torah. What are the black letters? What are the mitzvos? Tell me what to do. And I will, right? And I will. So, Maksiv Bey. Lo yasa sefer ratzah lekabel. They didn't want to go ahead and envelop themselves and enmesh themselves with the divine, which is what the Torah is all about. And therefore, They weren't interested in Hashem. They were interested in a series of ethical or even spiritual guidelines. They missed the forest for the trees. They missed the ocean for a few small drops. They missed the torch for just a few errant sparks. Mimela, so Hashem responded to them in kind. They asked what's written in it, and Hashem answered them, Leisinaf, Leisirtzaf, gave them some commandments, and they said, we're not interested. But do you know what HaKadosh Baruch Hu told Am Yisrael? He didn't open with commandments. He didn't open with commandments. Mashe ein kein Yisrael. Am Yisrael that said, Kol asher diber Hashem nase. Kol, Master of heaven and earth, we want it all. Meaning, we want you. We want an all-encompassing relationship with this thing. Not a few behavioral guidelines of tefillin here, and tzitzis there, and lulav there, and matzah here, and Chanukah menorah here. It's beautiful. We want you, meaning all of life. Every single waking moment, it's an existential vow. It's a commitment that relates to the essence of who I am from the minute that I wake up in the morning to the minute that I go to sleep and even beyond that. At every single age and stage, irrespective of whether or not I find myself in shul or in a beis medrash or in a holy day or in a holy place or in Eretz Yisrael or anywhere else. At every moment, in every place, in Kosher Kingdom, walking down over here, Brent Street, wherever you happen to be in the most mundane day on the way to do a particular errand. Kol asher dibra Hashem, Master of heaven and earth, I want you. I want the all of you. I want the all of Yiddishkeit, the all of a relationship, not some black letters here and there, not some mitzvahs. Kol asher dibra Hashem. Daika kol, they wanted it all. Because they weren't just interested in Torah and mitzvahs, they were interested in the giver of the Torah and a relationship with him, which all of the Torah is intended to bring us to. And so to them, Pasach Hashem Lahem HaKadosh Baruch Hu opened up to them, not with a few commandments, but with the word Anoichi. Unbelievably deep. Anoichi Hashem Eilecha. He mirrored their I am commitment with all of him, and he said, Anoichi, I am. Do you know what the Gemara tells us about the word Anoichi? This can sound like a Hasidic pshat, but it's literally Chazal. The word Anoichi is a Rashi Tevis. It's an otrikon. It's an acronym. All the letters stand for words. 4 letters, 4 words. The letter Aleph of Anoichi, Chazal tell us stands for the word Ana, which means I. That's the Aleph. The letter Nun spells the word Nafshi. This is Hashem speaking. Ana, I, Nafshi, so to speak. We could say Hashem has a soul. I don't know what this means. My soul, says Hashem. The Chaf stands for the word Ksavis, which means I wrote my soul down. And the Yud stands for Yahavis, and I gave it to you. That's the word Anoichi. I wrote down myself, says God, and I gave myself to you. In this sense, Shavuos is not really about Kabbalas HaTorah. We didn't just get the Torah on Shavuos. We got God on Shavuos. We got the all of Hashem on Shavuos, mirroring our commitment of all to that kind of living. And I want to let you know that it's so easy. I don't need to tell you this. All of you know this. It's so easy to get caught up, like Esav and Yishmael did, Lahavdil. But it's so easy to get caught up in the black letters, and we miss the white parchment. It's so easy, incredibly, especially today, in our societal culture, to get wrapped up in the details of the norms and strictures of this community or that community, and to focus on the things that really don't really matter very much. They're not even black letters, but maybe let's say they're black letters. This one dresses this way, this one davens in this shul, this one holds of that rav, this one davens in this place, or that nusach, or thinks this way, or makes this kind of simcha, or dresses their children like this. We become so wrapped up in the externalities of this experience of Yiddishkeit that we forget that the whole purpose of the whole thing is a relationship with Hashem that's all-encompassing. That's what righteousness means. It's not frumkeit. It's not where it's at. It's how much am I perceiving the presence of Hashem. There was a great spiritual master, whichever tradition, but it's a mashal that applies. And he bemoaned the fact that his students were not really understanding what he meant to give over to them, to communicate to them. And he said, the way that I feel is like I'm standing outside, surrounded by my disciples, and I'm pointing at the moon. And all of them are looking at my hand. He said, I'm lifting my hand to point somewhere, as I want them to look where I'm pointing. And they are missing literally the point, right? And they're just looking at my finger. It's possible to come into Shavuos and to look at the finger that is the Torah without looking toward which the Torah seeks to point us. The lifestyle of Avodas Hashem, the spirit of Avodas Hashem, what it means to be a sensitive, compassionate, conscious person who lives life with the ever-present awareness of Hashem's ever-presence. Not just at holy, special, connected, inspired times, but always. Who recognizes that Hashem is always one word away. In the good times and the not so good times, Hashem is knocking, called doidi doifik. He says, let me in. Let's go back to the song that we sang, and we'll sing it again in a few minutes. Mi ala bahar Hashem. Who stands in this place? This holy mountain. Mi yakum b'mkayim kadshay. Who stands firmly implanted? An experience, a lifestyle of connection, of holiness. Says the pasuk, Niki chapayim uvar levav. Which on a simple level means, again, a person, niki chapayim, of refined hands. It means a refined way of being in this world, who understands that this world is an illusion. We absolutely need to look beyond the surface of ourselves, of others, to find the Torah in ourselves, because all of us are a letter of the Torah, to find the Torah in nature, because all of nature was created with the Torah. And the Torah is more than just a book. It's more than just 613 mitzvahs. It's reality, but a deeper way of engaging with reality. Niki chapayim, uvar levav, and a pure heart. Listen to these words. Asher loy nasa lashav nafshi. What does it mean on a simple level? Pipshat means a person. Asher loy nasa lashav nafshi. Hashem says, who hasn't sworn in my name in vain. Right? Asher loy nasa, who hasn't taken lashav, for naught, nafshi, my name. That's how the Mefarshim explain it. But based on everything we're saying, we can understand something so much deeper. And this chaver is what Shavuos is about. This is what the opportunity of Shavuos is about. It's not about limud HaTorah. It's not, Simchas Torah is for that. That's what we celebrate on Simchas Torah. We finished learning the Torah. Shavuos is something else. Shavuos is what it means to be a Jew, which is even beyond that. Shavuos is what it means to be a human, why I'm here b'chalal. Asher loy nasa. Nasa can mean to carry. Lashav nafshi. Hashem says, all of these people, all of you and myself, all of us sitting in this room, are vessels for Hashem's presence, for nafshi, for Hashem's soul, which He's given to us, meaning which He's implanted within us. And Hashem says, please, let that not be lashav. Let that not be a wasted enterprise. To get caught up in the illusions, in the externalities of this thing called the human condition, and to forget why it is that we bear a spark of divinity within us, consciousness. Who stands in my holy place, a person that's not walking, carrying my soul, nafshi, ana nafshi, ksavis yahavis, the soul that I wrote down and gave to them, implanted within them, put within nature for the purpose of them coming to a constant awareness of me, giving themselves to me in the same way that I give myself to them. Ashaloi nasala shav nafshi, veloi nishba l'mirma. A person who hasn't taken that oath, that individual oath of Tihit Tzaddik, and that collective oath of Mushba va'oimer mehar Sinai lemirma, for no reason. I want to close with a story, and we'll sing a few more Nigunim, and we'll close for the night. I just want to remind us, very, very few Jews, holy, sweet, precious Jews, have the opportunity to do what we're doing now. I want you to be aware of that. I don't know percentages. A very large number of Yidden, and they'll get Gan Eden. It's not Nakuda to look down. It's the Nakuda to understand what we've done in coming tonight, and hopefully what we've gained in coming tonight. They're going to go into Shavuos, and they'll have Shavuos, and it will be beautiful. But the Piasetzner Rebbe, in a different place, in his Drasas to Rosh Hashanah, I'm not going to read it to you now, says that every mitzvah has a body and a soul. The body of the mitzvah, he says, is when you're doing the mitzvah. The soul is when you prepare for doing the mitzvah. And to the extent that you prepare, that's how much your mitzvah is infused with neshama. Really important thing, to prepare for the chagim. So I want to close with a story. And I could tell you this story, but I'd rather read you the story because I think that I heard this story before because it seemed a little familiar. But the way that the story was written did something beyond words. And I want to share this experience with you. So just a few more short moments. And even if you heard the story already, it's good chazara. Let's open our heart to this. What it means to have God's name etched into the essence of our being. The black letters of our being and the white parchment of our being. The context of our being. The I am of our being. David approached the young man standing in the back of the Yerushalayim shul, scanning him with an experienced eye. Dungarees, backpack, dark skin, curly black hair, looks Sephardi, maybe Moroccan, doesn't seem to have any place to go. A moment more for consideration, and he was moving toward the boy with his hand extended in welcome. Good Shabbos. My name is David Eisenblatt. Would you like to eat at my house tonight? The young man's face broke in an instant from a worried look to a toothy smile. Yeah, thanks. My name is Machi. The young man picked up his backpack, and together they walked out of the shul. A few minutes later, they were all standing around David's Shabbos table. As soon as the family started singing Shalom Aleichem, David noticed that his guest wasn't singing along. Maybe he's shy, or he can't sing, he surmised. The guest gave another one of his toothy smiles and followed along, limping badly, but obviously trying his best. Even after the meal began and the guest had relaxed somewhat, he still seemed a bit fidgety and was mostly silent. David picked up the signal and kept the conversation general, centered his remarks on the weekly Torah portion, mixed with small talk about current events. After the fish, David noticed his guest leafing through the Zemiros, apparently looking for something. He asked with a smile, "Is there a song you want to sing? I can help if you're not sure about the tune." The guest's face lit up, a startling change. "There is a song I'd like to sing, but I can't find it here. I really liked what we sang in the synagogue tonight. What was it called? Something Dodi." David paused for a moment on the verge of saying it's not usually sung at a table, but then he caught himself. If that's what the kid wants, he thought, what's the harm? "You mean L'chadodi," he said aloud. "Wait, let me get you a sitter." Once they had sung L'chadodi, the young man resumed his silence until after the soup, when David asked him, "Which song now?" The guest looked embarrassed, but after a bit of encouragement said firmly, "I'd really like to sing L'chadodi again." David was not really all that surprised when, after the chicken, he asked his guest what song now, and the young man said, L'chadodi, please. Finally, it got to be too much for David. Don't you want to sing something else? He suggested gently. His guest blushed and looked down. I just really like that one, he mumbled. Just something about it. I really like it. After dessert, David took Machi aside and said, I was just wondering, we haven't had more than a few moments to chat. Where are you from? The boy looked pained, then stared down at the floor and said softly, Ramallah. David's heart skipped a beat. He was sure he heard the boy say Ramallah, a large Arab city on the West Bank. He quickly caught himself and then realized he must have said Ramleh, an Israeli city. So David said, I have a cousin there. Right? Do you know Ephraim Werner? He lives on Herzl Street. The young man shook his head sadly. There are no Jews in Ramallah. David gasped. He really had said Ramallah. His thoughts were racing. Did he just spend Shabbos with an Arab? Giving his head a quick shake, he told the boy, I'm sorry, I'm a bit confused. And now that I think of it, I haven't even asked your full name. What is it, please? The boy looked terrified for a moment, then squared his shoulders and said quietly, Mahmoud ibn Sharif. Mahmoud was looking even more terrified now. Obviously, he could tell what David was thinking. Hurriedly, he said, wait, I'm Jewish. I'm just trying to find out where I belong. David stood there speechless. What could he say? Mahmoud broke the silence hesitantly. I was born and grew up in Ramallah. I was taught to hate my Jewish oppressors and to think that killing them was heroism, but I always had my doubts. I used to sit and wonder, weren't the Jews people too? Didn't they have a right to live the same as us? If we're supposed to be good to everyone, how come nobody includes Jews in that? I asked these questions to my father and he threw me out of the house. And just like that, I had nothing but the clothes on my back. By now my mind was made up. I was going to run away and live with the Jews until I could find out what they were really like. Mahmoud continued, I snuck back into the house that night to get my things in my backpack. My mother caught me in the middle of packing. She looked pale and upset, but she was quiet and gentle to me. And after a while, she got me to talk. I told her that I wanted to go live with the Jews for a while and find out what they're really like, and maybe I would even like to convert. She was turning more and more pale while I said all of this, and I thought she was angry, but she wasn't. Something else was hurting her. And she whispered, you don't have to convert. You already are a Jew. I was shocked. My head started spinning. For a moment I couldn't speak. Then I stammered, what do you mean? In Judaism, she told me, the religion goes according to the mother. I'm Jewish, so that means that you're Jewish too. I never had any idea that my mother was Jewish. I guess she really didn't want anyone to know. She sure didn't feel too good about her life because she whispered suddenly, I made a mistake by marrying an Arab man. In you, my mistake will be redeemed. She went and dug out some old documents and handed them to me, things like my birth certificate and her old Israeli ID card so that I could prove I was a Jew. I got them here, but I don't know what to do with them. My mother hesitated about one piece of paper. Then she said, you may as well take this. It is an old photograph of my grandparents, which was taken when they went looking for the grave of some great ancestor of ours. They went up north, and they found the grave, and that's where this picture was taken. David gently put his hand on Mahmoud's shoulder. Mahmoud looked up, scared and hopeful at the same time. David asked, do you have the photo here? The boy's face lit up. Sure, I always carry it with me. He reached in his backpack and pulled out an old, tattered envelope. David gingerly took the photo from the envelope, picked up his glasses, and looked carefully at it. The first thing that stood out was the family group, an old-time Sephardi family from the turn of the century. Then he focused on the grave that they were standing around. When he read the gravestone inscription, he nearly dropped the photo. He rubbed his eyes to make sure. There was no doubt. This was a grave in the old cemetery in Svas, and the inscription identified it as the grave of the great Kabbalist and Tzaddik, Reb Shlomo Alkabetz, the author of L'chadodi. David's voice quivered with excitement as he explained to Mahmoud who his ancestor was. He was a friend of the Arizal, a great Torah scholar, a tzaddik, a mystic. And Mahmoud, your ancestor wrote that song we were singing all Shabbos, L'chadodi. This time it was Mahmud's turn to be struck speechless. David slowly stood up from the bed, still in awe about what had happened. He extended his trembling hand and said, "Welcome home, Mahmud. Welcome home." There's a machlokes what Hebrew date Shavuos, Matan Torah, actually happened. But the Gemara tells us, Hakol Moedim, everybody agrees, L'kulei Alma, that the Torah was given on Shabbos. Because the essence of our renewed understanding of what Kabbalah Torah means is L'chadoidi Likras Skala. It's husband and wife, it's two lovers, is a romance, is a passion, is an I am relationship. HaKadosh Baruch Hu gives himself to us. HaKadosh Baruch Hu says, "V'noim lefanav shira chadasha." You can sing a new song. You can make a new commitment. You can make a new start. I bless us with a new start, Chevra. Join me. V'nekicha pagim u'valeva u'yashelohim v'loyin ishbalem emo nekicha pagim u'valeva